Hello, it's Graham Crawshaw from CASME here, and welcome to another video bulletin, this time looking at the actions that facilities management procurement are taking in response to the current COVID-19 crisis. So over the last couple of weeks, we've put out a questionnaire and we've had over 50 responses from CASME members across the world. And this presentation is just going to give you a very brief summary of what procurement is actually doing now at this stage. So let's go straight into the detail. So the encouraging part is that 64% of respondents are saying that they've had very active strategic input into the crisis team that's being set up to respond to what is required for the COVID-19. So procurement very much seen as a stakeholder. And those decisions of involvement have been very much looking at creating a safe working environment for employees, whilst making sure that contractual arrangements with FM suppliers are in place. So we know that many organizations have been separating out the central requirements with local specific actions that need to be taken. Not surprisingly, procurement is actively involved in collaborative sourcing of PPE, which falls under facilities management for a number of our members. One common approach is looking at managing the supplier risk and safety of the facilities management suppliers and subcontractors, making sure that the suppliers themselves are in a position to be able to continue providing service. So if we look specifically at some of the actions that procurement is doing, no surprise, there's a lot of communication going on, and we've recognized across the benchmarking that we've carried out that communication is absolutely critical. Some members are actively reducing services, and those that aren't required because buildings are either not being used or being used less. So for example, catering, shuttle buses, postal services, and some elements of security. Now where catering is being continued, that is changing in style. So for example, the elimination of helping yourself or a buffet style service. Companies are actively preparing to change the process for having visitors on site, deliveries, and also processing of mail. Now, in terms of payment terms, like many other indirect procurement categories, we're seeing a split between those organizations that are looking to extend payment terms to help their own liquidity, and those that are actively shortening payment terms with a view to helping suppliers and making sure they can continue providing the service that's required. We're also seeing actions of reviewing specifics within FM contracts. So for example, terminating for rental services such as car parking spaces. If we look specifically at cleaning, no surprise, that's been a real focus of attention. So 29% of members responded that the specifications of cleaning are being reviewed and raised, and 20% further say that they're increasing the frequency of cleaning. And there's some details coming in. So for example, increased sanitization, an increase in deep cleaning using equipment and consumables that are recommended and advised by the WHO or government sources. Raising stocks of critical consumables is also one that multiple companies fed back to us as it's important to make sure that you've got adequate supplies when looking to reopen buildings. So for those buildings or floors within buildings that are not being used, then converting the cost of either cleaning or other FM contracts to a more standard cost per meter is something that's being explored. And also recognizing that within the buildings, there will be rooms that aren't being used. So there could be trade-off in terms of reducing specifications in some areas like conference rooms, but increasing where cleanliness becomes even more important. Now, if we're looking in general at reactions regarding facilities management contracts, then 23% are telling us that they're looking at a change in scope of services, and a further 25 saying that within that, the enhancement of safety provision for employees is critical. So staff are being redeployed when sites are shut, and attention is being paid to considering shift rotations in order to enable sites to continue whilst complying with social distancing guidelines. It is a challenge in terms of bringing on new suppliers, and procurement has been active at speeding that process up. So not only bringing them on, but also conducting financial checks and making sure that they're able to be solvent at this particular time. Training, additional training is also required to ensure compliance with tightened specifications. And we've had feedback that some companies are looking longer term at force majeure clauses to make sure that they can be adequately protected in the future. Companies are keen to understand what their subcontractors are doing, and therefore sending questionnaires out to cover an understanding of their strategies and also initiatives. So I hope that summary has been of interest to you, and we'll be continuing our series of COVID-specific actions as procurement moves from the firefighting stage that we're experiencing now in May 2020, and as it moves into developing updated category plans as from about August 2020. That's all for me from now, so stay safe. Thank you.